Just after World War II, you take a journey out to the Redwood Empire north of San Francisco. Spotting a short passenger train waiting at the depot in a sleepy valley town, you buy a ticket, and along with a half dozen other tourists, locals, and employees, the train rumbles out of town. The golden hills give way to vineyards before entering a lush canyon. Dappled light spills through the windows as you glide down grade through a lush redwood forest alongside a rushing river. The deep cut opens out onto a sparkling bay. The smell of salt air and smoke fills your senses. You've arrived at Anchor Bay for the weekend. It's a small but bustling town along Highway 1, a rare, safe deepwater port in treacherous waters. Welcome to Anchor Bay. My client came to me wanting to capture this evocative feeling for a California shortline set in the late 1940s. His interest ranged from logging operations to capturing the iconic Roma Wines operation in the Central Valley. It was my task to develop a realistic concept to connect the two. Last year, his wife saw a video I'd done about the massive 14 by 42 foot model railroad I was building for a client, as seen here, and they both loved the concept and reached out to me. However, a decade earlier, he'd built a beautiful railroad depot in his backyard. Architect designed and directly inspired by SP Depot construction practices, it's the perfect space for a model railroad. Inside is an unobstructed 17 by 19 foot space. The exterior windows are dummies, and the interior is smooth drywall with coved corners, he added later. It has all the right details, and probably the most remarkably beautiful home for a model railroad I've yet seen. I needed to build a layout to do justice to this fantastic space. A couple of months of track planning to develop the concept of the Anchor Bay Railway went by fast. Lots of iteration produced a handsome result, a single-track main line with realistic sidings connecting the port city of Anchor Bay with the valley. A long branch goes up to serve the Roma Wines and out to a lumber mill. It's essentially two layouts in one and can be operated independently if so desired. Lots of inspiration was drawn from the Northwestern Pacific, the California Western, the Pacific Lumber Company, the Central California Traction, the Sacramento Northern, and many other California shortlines. The Anchor Bay is intended to be a blend of the best of, while still being its own unique operation. A lot of great lessons were learned from the 14 by 42 foot model railroad, chief among them being modularity. While I was able to build that layout on site, I wanted the benchwork to come together as efficiently as possible for Anchor Bay. I brought in my friend Carl, who is a professional stage and set carpenter. Between the two of us, we built all the modules for the layout in 2 afternoons in his shop, and then delivered them on site. All the modules are made of half-inch Baltic birch plywood in various dimensions. We designed some remarkably sturdy feet using plywood since the stick lumber that was available during the pandemic was laughably warped. If you have a good table saw, I'd actually recommend this leg design for anyone. Each of the modules is bolted together on the ends. The 2 areas with the reverse loops are open grid plywood benchwork we designed to be shipped flat. Each piece and intersection was dry fit and numbered in his workshop. It was then baled together and shipped on site where I assembled it later. It worked like a charm. The verticality of areas like the canyon called for foam scenery, so I had him purchase many sheets of 1 and 2 inch foam for scenery. That way we can have meandering creeks, streams, and embankments, and cuts below track level. All the grades were done using the Woodland Scenics foam risers, which were a lifesaver. I would highly recommend using them for any layout that you're building. Track was exclusively Pico Streamline 83. Microengineering became unattainable during the pandemic, and frankly, I don't think I'll miss it. The Pico track is fantastic. It holds its shape in the curves, and the switches are a delight. It was pleasantly easy to lay it all over the next few weeks. Originally, the staging yard, seen on the plan as Petaluma, was supposed to be hidden. The deck height was a thin 4 inches, which turned out to be okay. However, as we began using the layout, we realized the hatches wouldn't be used in normal operations, so we omitted them and continued on. My client and I are experimenting with a style of wiring in which the bus wire runs along the aisle side of the fascia. All feeders in the layout immediately go forth to meet the bus wire, and then they're all connected using Wago connectors. These are cam-based connectors, which have been an immense help. While suitcase connectors sever the wire and cannot be reused, these Wago connectors can effortlessly open and close for painless troubleshooting. I can also add or remove feeders without damaging the bus wires. Since my client does not want to go underneath the layout for anything, This turns out to be an excellent approach. This design was inspired by something he had observed in the Navy. The final result will be far more tidy than the photos show here since we're still wiring it up. The layout eventually grew to its final size with the completion of the peninsula upon which Anchor Bay sits. The peninsula is layers of foam supported on the plywood grid as seen earlier. It is also larger than the original plan to accommodate more of the town. It provides a much more generous waterfront so my client can build some ships to moor out in the water as well. On part 2, we'll be making mountains out of foam with hidden features, further refining scenery, and more. Stay tuned since I've already shot the footage for it. Cheers.